beneficial mutations that have been, people have been linking me from various different comments and things. They want to bring up the milk. Well, so we're going to talk about the milk and a couple of other things to kind of get them out of the way. So the contention here is that we're not supposed to be able to digest milk, and they say that it is a mutation, a positive mutation that allows us to digest the milk. And there's this protein called lactase or whatever that allows us to do that, and normally that gets turned off later in life for most mammals, so they cannot digest it. Well, I'd like to point out, number one, that mammals can digest milk. It's not some freak ability that they just all of a sudden are able to drink milk, you know. We have the ability to do that. There is just a little bit of question as to whether or not we should be able to do that in adulthood, which I haven't seen anything that suggests that we shouldn't be able to digest milk. But let's take a look and see what they say here. They go through about Adam and Eve, and they kind of make fun of that. And then they say 200,000 years after people, 10,000 BC, a genetic mutation appeared somewhere near modern-day Turkey. Now, when they like to say this because they link a lot of things here back to modern-day Turkey, and that is the mountains of Ararat. You know, where Noah's boat landed? Yeah. Just pointing that out there. So, some mutation happened in modern-day Turkey that jammed the lactase production gene permanently in the on position. So there's a gene that turns off after a while. And for a lot of people, it stays on, so you're allowed to digest milk, or for most people. It's actually pretty rare that you're lactose intolerant, which I would argue is a genetic mutation the wrong way, right? Because you're losing the ability to do something. So this is supposedly a beneficial mutation that happened. Number one, is it really a mutation? Because we already had the ability to digest milk. There's never been an example of anywhere that says that society couldn't digest milk. The oldest written things that we have in the Bible indicate that those people were drinking milk. So, as far as I know, we've always been able to drink milk. All mammals drink milk at birth. They all have the ability to do it. So I don't see why it's so significant that we can still drink milk. I would argue that the ability not to digest it is a mutation or a disease or an improper functioning of something, and that's the way it's always been treated. If you have a wheat allergy or lactose intolerant, you have a disease. You have a problem. That's not evolution. So then they go through to say it was probably male and blah, 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 blah. And then they say that, well, you know, when we figured out how to have cows and gather the milk from cows, then we just gained the ability to or mutated the ability or whatever to digest milk. And I like to say that that's a evolution by wants. Gee, I want to be able to drink milk, and then I evolved the ability to do it. And that's just BS, guys. It's total BS. In an evolutionary blink of the eye, 80% of Europeans became milk drinkers. No, everybody was a milk drinker. Yeah, you got a very small percentage of people. I didn't look up what it is, the number of lactose intolerant people, but lactose intolerance, by and large today, is due to the fact that what people call milk isn't really milk. They call it lactose intolerance, but the things that they're making cheese out of and milk out of, it's largely corn syrup. And in your milk today, I mean, it isn't milk, it's sugar. Sugar and water, they kill everything, and all the good bacteria in it that would help you digest it, it isn't even milk. So, who knows with that? It's more likely just a food allergy, similar to someone who can't eat wheat. So this here is not an example of a beneficial mutation. This is an ability we already have. We can already do that. We can already digest milk. So it's a non-issue. Stop linking this crap to me. So what I've found, though, in my research is that it's actually a bigger problem on the evolution side. This is all the way from back in 1991. When we want to talk about milk production and the fact that mammals produce milk and they can digest milk and they have lactase, is the fact that how do you evolve? How does a mammal just decide it's going to have offspring and it's just going to decide to grow mammary glands? All mammals have mammary glands, hence the name mammals. So what came first? And you know, it's not like there are always females are always producing milk. They are only producing milk during the time that their offspring is had. You know, it's kind of a bigger problem for those guys. So I just thought I would point that out. We're going to move on to the next one here about there's this CCR5 part of the blood protein, and this gives you AIDS immunity. And they say, oh, wow, what a great genetic mutation this is. You can't get AIDS. When you have two pairs of this, most people I think have one, or like half the population have one. But if you have two pairs of these genes in sequence, and it is a mutation, the AIDS virus cannot get into your blood. So it's kind of like the lock to get into your cells is a little bit busted, and the AIDS virus can't get inside. So they say this is a great example of a beneficial mutation because it protects you from AIDS and HIV. And again, this is the same thing as, you know, if you don't have any legs, you're not going to get athlete's foot. It's a beneficial mutation if you look at a very, very small one positive thing that it does for you and ignore all of the bad stuff that goes along with it. What is it? The malaria resistance when you've got sickle cell anemia is another great example. It's like, oh, I can't get malaria, and that's great if you're sitting in the Congo. But other than that, it's a disease, and it sucks. And this is the same with the CCR5. When it came out, there's the research behind this has been around for a long time, and they're gradually learning more and more. But, you know, as most of these things that are touted as fantastic beneficial mutations, they find out what the ramifications are going on down as the more and more that they study it. And with this particular one, they find out that you are incredibly more likely to get hepatitis. So you're fine with the HIV, but the hepatitis is a bigger problem, is what this study comes from. And this is from back in 2001. So this is pretty old, and they already knew this. So what I'm guessing is that the HIV patients back then, they were looking at them and they go, well, yeah, the HIV is down, but your hepatitis is really bad. Because most people that have HIV and all this are all homosexuals. And they're going to have both. Hepatitis C, you know, you can get is a lot easier to get than HIV. HIV is pretty much your anal sex in this day and age. Once upon a time, it was blood transfusions, but they've weeded that out. So, yeah. And they're all going to have hepatitis C. And, you know, so it's like you got your little bit of a trade-off there with what you're going to be infected with. And because of this, this CCR5 gene is part of your immune system. So they're only finding out more and more and more and more things that actually get screwed up when you have this CCR5 protein, because drugs that are there to help you also aren't recognized by the CCR5. So it's like, yeah, okay, well, your HIV, you're less likely to get infected with it, but all the other immune boosting drugs to kill diseases are also having a problem. So it's calling it a beneficial mutation is kind of like, you know, I mean, they are developing drugs for AIDS patients and things like that based on the CCR5 thing, which is great. But as being a beneficial mutation, no, I don't think so. No, not really. And again, here, this one's from 2005. This is done by the government, actually, with the hepatitis results. And they're going through, apparently there's different versions of AIDS, too, where the CCR5 is great against a certain type, but it pushes the AIDS to develop into a different type and attack in a different form or something to that effect. This here is talking about your sclerosing cholangitis, anyways, is liver disease. So now they're finding out, this is 2004, that if you got the CCR5 mutation, you're really prone to liver disease. So beneficial mutation, you know, I don't really think so. I mean, I guess if you really love running around the clubs having anal sex with people, it's probably great. But for your average person, you really don't want to have this mutation. That's what I gather from it. So beneficial? I don't think so. We're going to move on here to nylon-eating bacteria. We're just going to keep it rolling. People keep posting this, and I'm tired of typing my response. I covered this in the E. coli experiment, okay? Breaking bacteria so that they can do something different is not a big deal. It's not evolution. This bacteria, they say it's evolution because nylon wasn't around before 1930. So, wow, if the bacteria can eat the nylon, that's a big deal because, we invented something and, it's adaptation. What happened was the bacteria, because it's sitting in a toxic waste pool of a, nylon factory, sitting in the wastewater, it mutated in its transporter gene, much like the E. coli. The genes that allow things into the cell wall, it broke. And so you get these nylon stuff, particles, that look like proteins to the bacteria because that's how the nylon is built. And the bacteria can eat it, and that's a big deal because nylon wasn't around and now the bacteria can eat this nylon, and what a great thing. Well, the problem is that it breaks the bacteria. So if you take it out of, this is only in one area that they found this, by the way, but so it's incredibly rare. It's a mutation that's only going to exist where it exists right now because it's a very rare mutation that affects these bacteria, and it's a very negative mutation in that it's like breaking the keys to a lock. So instead of the key working in the lock, or like an old car you may have had that the ignition went out, so instead of using a key to start the car, you just use a screwdriver. It's the same thing. So it's really beneficial if you want to start your car and you got no other way to start your car. But if you want to park it anywhere, anybody can stick a screwdriver in there and start your car. It's the same thing with the bacteria. You put these bacteria in with the wild and natural selection environment where they're exposed to everything and they won't survive. They'll get wiped out. Period. So that is not a beneficial mutation. It's the same thing with the E. coli experiment. Except with the E. coli one, they were dealing with citrates, and the E. coli could always eat the citrate anyway. It wasn't a big thing. But so nylon-eating bacteria, beneficial mutation? No. This is a negative mutation that happens to be beneficial because of the circumstances. And anytime you see a beneficial mutation, it's always going to be that. It's always going to be in a special, specific circumstance, in a little glass jar filled with food. It's a beneficial mutation. But beneficial mutations, as far as my definition and my understanding is, it's a beneficial mutation all the time with minimal negatives, or it adds new genetic information to the gene code. None of these are adding anything to the gene code. All they're doing is scrambling it up and breaking whatever is mutating. The exception being in the beginning is the milk thing. And is that even a mutation? I mean, they kind of think it is, but it could just as easily be adaptation. Which, these bacteria can eat the nylon because of an adaptation, because it was eat the nylon or die. You're sitting in a toxic soup, and your transporter genes are broken, so all this crap is getting in, and you have a choice to eat the nylon or die. So the bacteria produced some enzymes and adapted the ability to actually consume the nylon, and that's a big deal. That's what they say is, these are new enzymes they haven't seen before, so that's got to be evolution. This is just more on the this particular Flavobacterium K172. Talking about that, I'm going to go to the answers or talk origins. Here they're saying this is evolution. I'm just preemptively debunking this crap. They're basically saying it's evolution because it's a guided evolution, as in the bacteria wanted to eat the nylon. They wanted to. It was a guided. See, the cells rearranged themselves so they were able to process the nylon because the nylon didn't exist. Well, how do you know if the nylon didn't exist naturally in a rock somewhere? The bacteria wouldn't have eaten it since creation. I mean, so what? So what? They can eat synthetic stuff. It's not a big deal. Um, it isn't. And, we eat synthetic stuff all the time. Look at this. They got rubber in your Subway bread. And I'll add, they got rubber in all your bread that you get at a fast food place. That's just how they do it, is it's cheap. So eat fresh. Eat your rubber. See? We're eating rubber too. Did we evolve the ability to eat rubber? Or did we just devolve the ability to have any friggin' common sense that you don't put rubber in your food? Huh? How about that? So, and Subway is the one on here, but if you go to any fast food place, all the buns are going to have the rubber in there. And this is just one example. We'll move on. This is the glycol that's in stuff. Antifreeze. Typically, this is going to be your sports drinks. What the antifreeze does is it's an emulsifier. So if you've got food coloring like Gatorade or something, so that your ingredients don't separate and you don't have a clear liquid in there that looks kind of nasty, you don't have to shake the bottle. They figure, oh, well, that looks nasty. It'll sell better if we put antifreeze in there. So we have the ability now to digest antifreeze. Did they have antifreeze before 1932? We must have evolved. Look at this. We got it in our beer, our baked goods, margarine, cake mix, soda, ice cream, icing. Yeah. Coffee. Even got coffee. So being able to eat synthetic stuff, who cares? Who cares? I mean, they didn't have it before XYZ. Well, we weren't putting rubber in our bread before probably 1980 either. So, we got to understand what we got to really look at these things as to what people are trying to infer with their little articles about evidences for evolution here. They're not evidences. They're presented in such a skewed way that they don't let you know about all this other crap and all this common sense stuff. So this is what I got with for our little discussion today to debunk some of these people, and they're saying, oh, milk, that's obvious evolution stuff, and your AIDS immunity, and it's all a bunch of crap. You got to look at the bigger picture. You always got to look the first time anything comes out with positive mutation XYZ, go right up and go see what negative effects there are, because I'll guarantee you they'll outweigh whatever benefit that they think they're going to get. That's the way that it's been with every single one of these. And, some of them can be a positive mutation that because you're out of the like in humans, because you're out of the world of natural selection, more or less, they can be positive. Like if you're a gay guy, having the CCR5 thing is probably a fantastic deal. Absolutely fantastic. Because if you get sick, you have an immune problem and you're going to get sick more often. Well, we have modern medicine. You can go stay in a hospital. It's probably great in today's society, but before modern medicine, you're living out in the Middle Ages, having CCR5 mutation isn't going to do much for you because AIDS wasn't around, and you've got a totally decreased immune deficiency problem. So you got to look at the big picture with this stuff. I'm going to say, beneficial mutations, I will say exist, but it's very circumstantial. There is no such thing as a positive mutation, one that positively affects the gene code. It's impossible. Mutations are always bad. And with that,